Hey book lovers, I'm Elise and today we're going to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I just started my channel back in October. This is the end of October. It was like October 30th. This is my first time doing this tag and I'm excited, so let's get started. Question number 1 is the best book that you've read so far this year. For me, that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I absolutely love this book, and of course, the one Emily Henry book that I didn't purchase, I got from the library, was finally the one that I rated 5 stars and loved everything about. I binged this book in an entire day. I took myself out to breakfast and started it there, and then I was on sprints with Rachel and Liv for like 5 hours, read it more during that, and then probably about an hour and a half after sprints ended was when I finished the book, and I loved it. Zero complaints. It is literal perfection. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you've read so far this year, and for me that is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is of course book number 3 in the ACOTAR series. I loved it. Didn't love it quite as much as ACOMAF, but still 5 stars. I have no negative thoughts about this series at all. Question number 3 is a favorite reread. The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. I think this was my 3rd reread of this book, and I reread it around my birthday this year just to, really solidify, is this still my favorite book of all time? And it was confirmed that it is indeed. For those of you that don't know, this is like an epic love story between Claire and Henry. Henry has this genetic anomaly that forces him to involuntarily time travel at any point. He doesn't know when he's going, how long he's gone, or where he's going to. And of course, being in a relationship with somebody like that can be very difficult. I love this. The writing is beautiful. The story is beautiful and heartbreaking, and favorite book of all time. Question number 4 is a genre that you've been loving recently. At the beginning of the year, one of my reading goals was to read more fantasy, sci-fi, dystopian, because I enjoy those, but I haven't really read much of them the last couple years. I have been reading more of them this year and I've been having a great time. I think probably in that order. I've been reading more fantasy and then sci-fi and then dystopian. Okay, question number 5. What are some new releases that you haven't read yet this year but still want to? And I have a few. First, of course, is the darling of the bookish community right now, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I love those little dragons. They're so cute. This is a new adult fantasy about a magical university where people ride dragons, I think. I don't really know. The lowest rating that I've seen for this book is 4 stars, so I'm convinced I'll probably love it, and I do hope to read it sometime this summer. Another new release that I really want to get to this year is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. This, I think, is a dystopian. I'm not 100% sure what it's about, to be honest with you. The explosive, hotly anticipated debut novel from New York Times bestselling author of Friday Black about 2 top women gladiators fighting for their freedom within a depraved private prison system not so far removed from America's own. As that said, this is Nana Kwame's first novel, but he did write a collection of short stories called Friday Black, which I actually read last year, and I enjoyed it. I think overall I gave the book 3 stars. I mean, it's a collection of short stories, so there were some stories that I thought were really good and others that I didn't like so much, so it kind of averaged out to 3, but I highly recommend, and I'm really excited to get to this one. Another new release that I want to get to this year is The Marriage Act by John Mars. This will be my 3rd book that I read by him. I've also read The One and Keep It in the Family. Both of those were 5 stars, like jaw-dropping thriller, 5 stars. This one I think is a little bit more dystopian, and it's set in a world where being single is illegal. The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland. This is a historical fantasy, I think, and I think it has something to do with vampires. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's the vibe. Suspenseful and enchanting, this novel weaves a story of love, family, history, and myth as seen through the eyes of one immortal woman. So it follows a woman through a number of years. She's immortal. She has a thirst for blood, much like her grandfather, I think it said. I think it has something to do with vampires. And the last new release that I want to talk about today, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This one sounds super interesting. I don't even think that I've read the synopsis, but from what I've heard other people mention, this book follows a white author who steals the work of an Asian author. This author is very successful, so the white author who is not successful steals this other author's work after she passes and publishes it as her own. And I've heard it has a lot to say about the publishing industry, and I'm just really excited to get this one. It sounds really good. Question number 6 is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And that is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. This is her newest thriller. I think it comes out in October. I'm not 100% sure on the date that it comes out. It's a gothic southern thriller about a killer who haunts a small town in Louisiana. From a couple blurbs that I've heard people talk about, it gives True Blood vibes, I think, which I'm really into. Question number 7 is, what is your biggest disappointment? For me, that is A House of Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I was really excited about this Southern Gothic thriller coming out by her this year. Yeah, I didn't like it. Question number 8 is, what's been your biggest surprise so far this year? And I actually have 2. The first is Big Gay Wedding by Byron Lane. This book is an LGBTQIA plus contemporary that I just randomly came across on NetGalley. I requested an ARC because the colors on the cover were popping. There was like blue and yellow. I got accepted for the ARC. I read it and it was amazing. It was hilarious. It had a really unique writing style that I haven't seen in any other book so far. I loved it. It was 5 stars. So that was a huge surprise because I love when you come across a book that you haven't heard anyone else talk about and it ends up being a 5-star. That's just the best feeling in the world. And the second biggest surprise was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This book I only rated 4 stars, but I say it was a big surprise because I DNF'd no exit at like 52%. Yeah. That was awful. I hated it. So I was really nervous about going into this one, but thankfully it was good. I liked it. Question number 9, a favorite new author, and that could be new to you author or a debut author. For me, I have 2. The first one I'm going to say is Gabrielle Zevin. She's the author of Tomorrow, 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 which I have not yet read, but earlier this year I did read The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, which is also by Gabrielle Zevin, which I had no idea. I really like her writing style. She does a really good job of telling this story that spans a lot of years and just really pulling you into the lives of these characters. And I've heard very similar things about Tomorrow, 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 and she does have other books as well. This was a 5-star read. I'm sure Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow is going to be a 5-star read or close to it. And then the other author I want to talk about is Byron Lane, which is the author of Big Gay Wedding that I just talked about. The reason that I loved his writing was because, one, like I said, it was hilarious. I laughed so much, but I also cried. I had happiness, I had sadness, I had anger, I had sympathy. Byron did such a good job of making the reader feel those emotions so deeply, but also I really liked his way of omniscient storytelling. So a lot of books, they do multiple POVs where it's like this chapter's in the POV of this character and then this chapter's for another character. In this book, Byron has the point of view like casually and seamlessly flow from one character to another. So it's just like you feel like you're kind of like floating through the minds of all the different characters, and it sounds really confusing, but it worked. I really enjoyed it, and you even get the POV of a dog and a sheep. It was a great time. Question number 10 is your newest fictional crush, and for this one I have 3, and one of them probably gonna get some judgment for, so. The first one is Win from Happy Place. I loved Win. I've heard a lot of people took issue with how he handled things in the book. I personally am on the side of things where I think he did the best that he could, and I think he's a great guy, and I pictured him as Charlie Hunnam. Next is Dr. River Pena from The Soulmate Equation. I also pictured an actor for him, Adam Rodriguez. I really liked his character too. He was like kind of grumpy, but not grumpy. It was more like he had some walls up, but then once his walls came down, he was Okay, and then this one don't judge me, okay? Andrew Winchester from The Housemaid. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I pictured him as Henry Cavill. So those are my 3 fictional crushes. All right, this next one I think is also going to say a lot about me, but question number 11 is your newest favorite character. I have 2. The first is Grace Evans from You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. She, I thought, was just badass from beginning to end. I really liked her character. I think a lot of the decisions that she made were decisions that I would probably make as well. So there's that. And then the other one is Emma Carpenter from The Last Word. Again, I felt like she was a real badass. She did the best that she could in the situation that she was thrown into. I really enjoyed her point of view. And the interesting part is for both of these female leads, I pictured Florence Pugh. Question number 12 is a book that made you cry. And for me, that book, Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. This book, what does the synopsis say? Because, yeah, it says the magic of this novel is in the read, so we don't want to spoil it by giving away too many details. So I feel like I can't tell you anything about it. A story about that special someone, the one in whom you trust and confide, and without whom you can't imagine living. For our narrator, Ted, that someone special happens to be his best friend, Lily, who happens to be a dog, a dachshund, aka a wiener dog. When Lily's well-being is at risk, Ted will do everything in his power to keep her safe. So yeah, I can't tell you what I wanted to tell you about why this book made me cry so much, but I grew up with 2 long hair dachshunds, a black and tan and a red hair. Lily's a red hair, but she's a short hair. So, oh my goodness, first of all, super sweet. okay, from the second that Lily meets Ted, the connection that they have. And it's clear that like Stephen Rowley has probably owned a dachshund because he talks about things that dachshund owners know all too well and how easy it is for them to like put their back out because they have that long back. So you have to like hold them a certain way so they don't get injured, and they can't really jump up or jump down on things a lot because they could get injured. They can't take off running after a squirrel or a rabbit, which mine had done multiple times, and put their back out. So it was a good time. I was sobbing at the end of this. I think if you've ever loved a pet, if you've ever loved a dog, and if you've ever loved a dachshund, you need to read this and bring a box of tissues. Question number 13 is a book that made you happy, and for me that is Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. This was such a walk down memory lane. Obviously, yes, Tom Felton played Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter movie franchise, but he played in a lot of other things as well. The first thing I ever saw him in was The Borrowers. He played Pegreen, and I completely forgot about that until he talked about it in his book. Tom is such a cool, down-to-earth guy. He talks about everything in this book, and he makes himself really vulnerable, and he opens up to his fans, and I loved it so much. I loved hearing him talk about some of the bigger actors in the Harry Potter movies, like Maggie Smith and Alan Rickman. Ooh, what's his name? Jason Isaacs. He played Lucius Malfoy. He sounds like a great guy too. I just have so much respect for Tom Felton, and I love him so much, even more so after reading this book. Question 14 is, what is the most beautiful book that you have hauled recently? And for me, actually, I just picked this one up yesterday, and that is On Earth as It Is on Television by Emily Jane. I don't know why, but like, I love this cover. The colors, the little UFO, I just love it. I think it's super cute. And look at that fuchsia color. It's so pretty. I don't honestly know what this one's about. I think it's a sci-fi. When spaceships arrive and then depart suddenly without a word, the certainty that we are not alone in the universe turns to intense uncertainty as to our place within it. And I'm not a big blue person either, so that makes zero sense. And the last question, what are some books that you have to read by the end of the year? I mean, I have a whole TBR cart of books that I had on my 23 books of 2023 list that I have to get to. I have books on my 12 books by 12 friends recommendations list that I have to get to. I think I've only read like one, maybe two off of that list, so I have to get to those. And I also have quite a few arcs that I was approved for in NetGalley that I have to get to. Oh gosh, not me trying to remember all of them off the top of my head. Oh, my Kindle's right here. That is super convenient. The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. Live, Laugh, Lesbian by, author's not listed on here, and it's a nonfiction. Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling. Checkmate by Allie Hazelwood. The Spare Room by Andrea Bartz. The Trap by Catherine Ryan Howard. Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. That was the other one. I did not read Hyde. I don't know if I will because I've heard not great things about it, but Mr. Magic sounds really interesting and I love the cover. I definitely need to get through all of those arcs because I sometimes have a bad habit of holding on to arcs until well after they've been published, and that's not what they're intended for. So I need to really do a better job of reading those prior to their publishing date. So that is the end of the mid-year book freakout tag. Thank you so much for joining me today. Like I said, I'm super excited to be able to do this one this year. If you haven't already done this and you have a BookTube channel, consider yourself tagged. And if you don't and you just want to let me know what some of your answers are in the comments below, I would love that as well. Please remember to like and subscribe, and until next time, bye.